determination? You keep emphasizing that you do not believe that you're required to make a public determination. Have you made a private determination?
I'm convinced it's the laws. This is related to our public determination.
But have you made a private determination?
I don't have any more for
because
you, Arshad, on our private conversations.
Just so you know, the law doesn't say public determination. It says determination.
Well,
so if you have a determination of any sort, then it seems to me one could plausibly argue you have not followed the law.
Thank you for your legal analysis. We have determined that we do not need to make a determination about whether or not this is
public or private.
Yes.
Senator John McCain said yesterday that there is no national security waiver in this law. Am I confused here because you keep saying that it's in our national security interests not to make a determination here?
So I think there's some confusion about what we have announced. We've announced that we have determined legally we do not need to make a determination as to whether it is a coup or not a coup. Beyond that, we're going to continue to work with Congress to abide by our legal obligations. If steps are needed, we will work with Congress to take those steps.
Does that mean that a determination could be made later?
That is not our plan, no.
So is the book closed on this determination?
Well, we're continuing to review our relationship, and in any country, of course. So I'm not going to look into a crystal ball with that, but of course we're continuing to review. There's not a plan to make a determination as it relates to.
But you wouldn't rule that out.
Right?
I'm not.
It is not our plan. So
there conceivably could be at some time in the future, in a week, two, and so on, you come back and say it is a coup?
No, that's not. I'm actually saying the opposite of that.
The book is closed on that definition. It is not a coup.
We have determined we're not going to make a determination. So I haven't said one way or the other. Well, Matt, it's a complicated situation and important strategic relationship.
How is it the administration believes they can base a policy on pretending that something didn't happen?
Matt, our policy
how does that work?
Our policy is based on our national security interests and regional stability and many complicated factors that have gone on the ground here. We're not looking at this as a black and white case.
Not looking.
Clarification. So national security interests influenced a legal decision in this case?
Our national security interests influence our policy as it relates to aid with Egypt. As you all know, if a determination was made that this was a coup, then that would be a certain trigger. But beyond that, we reviewed the legal obligations and determined we did not need to make a determination one way or the other.
No, sorry.
Every time the military removes a democratically elected leader around the world and you deem that this is in America's national security interest, you're not going to call it a coup?
Well, we're talking about one specific case, and that is what is happening in Egypt.
But it sets a precedent.
We're looking at each case. I'm not going to predict certain cases in the future. I'm talking about specifically Egypt and the events that have happened over the last couple of months and our evaluation as it relates to Egypt.
But it sets a precedent, and John McCain yesterday in Congress made very clear that this was not good for America's reputation around the world if you start deciding that the law applies here and not there. And that doesn't, I mean, you can't then go to other countries
the determination was made as to whether we needed to make a determination on whether it's a coup or not a coup. We're continuing to work with Congress on abiding by our legal obligations. I'm certain Senator McCain and conversations with him and others will be a big part of that.
But you just closed the book on that. I mean, why are you continuing discussions with them on what?
On our legal obligations and abiding by that moving forward.
In this particular case, in Egypt's case, you're talking with them?
Yes.
So what are you hoping, since you have already made the decision? I'm a bit confused.
That we can continue our assistance and that it's consistent with the law.
So you are talking with them on the ways to continue assistance?
Yep.
Not whether it's a coup or not.
Correct.
That has been made.
But I feel as if I'm looking through the looking glass here because you're arguing that this building has decided that for national security interests, it doesn't have to make a determination about whether it's a coup. 2 days ago, the Pentagon announced that it's not sending 4 F-16s for which the Egyptians have already paid, but they're not doing it except because they're concerned about the situation on the ground. It's a mixed message here. Is it a coup or isn't it?
I don't think it's a mixed message. I think you're combining a couple of things right now.
But this is all being done on an interagency process. Let me answer your question, and then we can continue discussing. The law does not require us to make a formal determination as to whether a coup took place.
We evaluated the F-16s and determined in that specific case it was not appropriate to deliver those F-16s. We will continue to review. I have nothing to announce for you, no predictions to make for you, but that was a specific case. What I'm saying as it relates to national security is certainly that's a factor as it relates to our overall relationship with Egypt and the role in regional stability that Egypt plays. This is a complicated situation. That's why there's a complicated evaluation.
But given that the F-16s, I would assume, would not be used to drop warheads on the people who are protesting in Tahrir Square, doesn't it, in a way, endanger U.S. regional security interests when you consider the ongoing instability that is flowing out of Syria, the ongoing concerns about issues inside Iraq, and the ongoing concerns about what Iran may or may not be doing with its nuclear weapons program, for Egypt's military to not have those fighter jets to deal with these international
as
issues?
You know, Roz,
it is problematic. And usually people would assume, as Arshad suggested earlier, that if you don't send the weapons, which is the bulk of the $1.3 billion aid annually to Egypt, that you are, in fact, making this determination by your action.
Well, I would caution you in reading into the F-16's decision as indicative of anything else. Obviously, the Department of Defense made the initial announcement. It is under their purview. I'm certain that factors related to security were taken into account. I would point you to them on more specifics, and we will continue to evaluate.
But they specifically said, George Little specifically said on Wednesday, this was because of the concerns that we have about the political situation in Cairo, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so why is that not, in fact, a tacit admission that what happened 3.5 weeks ago, in fact, was a coup?
Because we're making an evaluation case by case. That was the one case and one specific example I can point you to.
It seems like that sounds like you're saying to the Egyptians, we'll parse out aid as we see we need to influence you with it.
No, we've been very clear, and I'll state it again here, that we don't think it's in our interest to cut off aid to Egypt. There was a decision made specifically about the F-16s.
But you are saying it will be on a case-by-case basis from now on?
Well, no, I'm not saying that, and I apologize if that was what you thought I was conveying. We're continuing to review. That means working with Congress. That means continuing to review moving forward. Obviously, this story is not done yet, so we'll continue to review in the weeks and months ahead.
Can we have some more clarity about how you reached that determination? I mean, but based on what? And if it's not now, I mean, could you get back to us
The
about how
legal
you reached,
determination?
Yeah, the legal determination that you don't have to make a determination that it's a coup, because it's very opaque. I mean, in the past, when there's been a coup, you have cut aid, or you have found a legal way, very transparent legal way, to continue giving aid to a specific country. For example, Pakistan after 2001, you get a waiver for the sort of so-called coup legislation. So why didn't you choose this path at this stage with Egypt?
Well, again, we're continuing to work with Congress on legislative steps that need to be taken, if they need to be taken. In terms of how we determined that we did not need to make a determination, that is a bit of a mouthful, I'll admit. I'm happy to check for you and see if there's anything else specific to provide for you on that.
It certainly sounds like this review was focused on finding a way out of this, enforcing or acting in accordance with the spirit of the law, rather than on the actual facts on the ground and what happened. Is that correct?
No. We are abiding by our legal obligations, has always been a very important factor here, as is our national interests and our national security.
So quite apart from the law, what do you call it when the military of a country overthrows the democratically elected president, takes him into custody, holds him incommunicado for weeks, and now comes up with, starts investigating charges that he was involved in a jailbreak and murder and that kind of thing? Forget about the law. How would you describe that scenario?
Well, we would say that there's a need to move forward towards an inclusive process, and that we're opposed to the arbitrary arrests, and that we're focused on moving ahead. I'm not going to give it a one-word name. I don't think there's a need for that.
Well, maybe you could give it a two-word name with an apostrophe in the middle of it. Yeah?
Well, if I come up with a good name for you, I'm happy to let you know.
I just don't understand how either say it was a coup or say it wasn't a coup, but coming up with this, trying to avoid taking responsibility. It just seems to, and avoid implementing what the will, the intent of what this law is supposed to be and supposed to do in terms of guiding foreign policy. I just don't understand, one, how it took so long to come to this decision you were just going to ignore this, and two, what makes you think, as other people have asked, that this is not going to hurt your reputation, your image, your credibility abroad when you go around and tell other governments that they should respect the rule of law?
Well, Matt, obviously this is a complicated situation. We're taking each situation, case by case. We took the time to review and evaluate all of the factors here, our legal obligations, our national security interests, the impact on regional stability. I think that that's a message that will be understood.
Really? If you can't explain it to us, I don't think you're going to be able to explain it to other people.
Kim raises an interesting point, which is the Pakistan precedent, where after 9/11, the Bush administration decided that it was important, in order to secure counterterrorism cooperation from Pakistan, to waive a number of laws, including the coup one, which had been applied to them. Why didn't you choose that outcome, which might have been a cleaner outcome? Why didn't you seek to get a legislative fix that would have allowed you to continue assistance to Egypt?
Well, we don't know if there would be legislative fixes needed or not. If there are needed, we'll work with Congress on that. I'm not going to peel back the curtain on all the discussions that happened over the past couple of weeks. As we all know, there were many discussions. Interagency, the Secretary was involved with, many senior-level national security officials. And I'm certain that many options were discussed.
And who ultimately made the decision not to make a determination?
Well, obviously there's a factor as it relates to the legal component, which our legal office here played a significant role in, and certainly this was discussed and agreed to through the interagency process.
But who decided? I mean, the buck stopped somewhere, as Harry Truman said, it stopped with him. Does the buck stop with the president in this case, or with the secretary, or with the acting legal advisor of the State Department, or who?
Well, I'm not going to read out who was where on what and all the players involved in this.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking who made the decision.
This was agreed to by the national security team. Beyond that, I'm not going to.
Why are you afraid to say who made the decision?
I'm not afraid of anything, Arshad. I'm just not. I'm not getting into more specifics than that for you. I don't like wolves, but I'm not afraid of them.
Could you comment on the list of charges that were levied against Morsi?
I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
The list of charges. Morsi was charged with conspiring with Hamas. He was charged with break and murder and all that stuff. Could you comment on that?
Sure. Well, we, of course, are deeply concerned by reports that an Egyptian court has ordered the detention of Mr. Morsi. I can't speak to the specific charges, but we do believe that it is important that there be a process to work towards his release. Clearly, this process should respect the personal security of him and take into account the volatile political situation in Egypt, and that's where our focus is.
I know we've asked this question time and again. Do you know anything about his whereabouts? Are you asking about where he is?
I don't have any more for that on that for you.
Are you interested to know what kind of, what is his status, whether he's alive or dead, or
clearly,
sick or injured or anything like that?
We have conveyed publicly and privately that his personal security and treatment is of utmost importance.
But you have not tried firsthand to find out what is his condition?
I just don't have more of an update on it for you.
The process in bringing these charges against him, do you consider the High Court a legitimate agency to have brought these charges about, or do you think this is all trumped up, and by you I mean the department?
Well, we're concerned about arbitrary arrest. I don't have anything specific on these charges, but we would like to believe it's important to have a process working towards his release. So I think that speaks to it.
Clear as to why you're deeply concerned about this, because it's being done within the Egyptian legal process, whereas, as I believe, his initial detention by the military was not legal under their constitution and their laws. So now that they're going about doing it legally, why are you deeply concerned?
We are deeply concerned about his detention.